Welcome back to We Still Like Each Other, the podcast. I'm Travis.
And I'm Stephanie.
And this is the podcast where we prove that the honeymoon stage can last forever.
And ever and ever. And today we have our first in-person live guest, Irene. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Applause.
So honored.
Are you feeling a little nervous?
I was a little bit at first, but now I'm just like, I'm ready to talk to y'all. Like
you saw us get ready, set up our little, ratchet podcast.
I'm here for it.
All set?
Yep.
All right. So, babe, how was your week?
Boring. Skip me. Nothing. How was yours?
Well, we had a ladies' night. Irene was there.
Yep. That was fun. It was a little Savage X lingerie / viewing party.
Yeah. So when Rihanna announced the date of her fashion show, I was like, let's have a viewing party at my place. And, we put a little spin on it. So instead of Savage X Fenty, it was Savage BX Fenty.
I didn't know that part.
Big Bronx energy. So we had a good time. We were in lingerie.
Yep.
We brought my pole, my stripper pole, out of the bedroom.
Exercise pole.
And put it in the living room.
Yeah.
So we had a good time.
Yeah, it was lit.
It was fun.
It was lit.
I was kicked out.
Yeah.
So I went to Brooklyn.
Roaming the streets.
I was home in Brooklyn.
What did you say the streets said to you?
They said, "Welcome back." When I got to Brooklyn, I turned off my GPS because I knew the streets.
Need it. Yeah.
I didn't need it. And I felt at home.
The streets missed you?
Yeah.
I know. He was dying to come back home though.
No, I was. I sent her a picture of, I photoshopped my face on some lingerie and said, "I'm coming back."
Yeah, she showed us. It was more funny.
I'm joining the squad. All right. So Irene is here because we received a submission from a listener asking me specifically to dive into all of my layers of my identity, right? That as a Black woman, a Dominican woman, an educator, a mother, all these roles that I kind of live in simultaneously. And they want their perspective on how I handle them all. How do they overlap? But we always felt okay, what is Travis really going to say in this moment? How is he going to contribute? And how is he going to contribute in a way that he's not going to take up space? Right. So we wanted a guest, and we're so happy that you're here.
Oh, thanks for considering me.
So Irene and I went to high school together. But we weren't really that close in high school.
Me and Stephanie didn't talk. Mm-mm. And we both had a mutual best friend. You were best friends with her. I was best friends with her, but we were never friends with each other because we had our own separate circles.
Yep.
And so that was 2004 to 2008.
So from 14 to 18.
From 14 to 18.
And
we were friends on social media. Life happened.
Wait, keep it real. Was she a bitch?
Who, Steph? I don't know. I was minding my business in high school.
Nothing stands out.
So nothing.
I'm gonna touch on that later. But we're gonna get into that conversation at the end of this show. We're gonna get into that.
But we life happened or whatever. And then fast forward to last year during the pandemic, you threw Christina a surprise 30th birthday party, slid in my DMs hey, can you come over? I'm cooking for Christina. And I was like, yes. So I came. That's when I met you, and then ever since we just
clicked.
We had too many things in common.
It was crazy to think that we were in the same building for 4 years and never knew how much we had in common.
Never.
It's a reminder that time doesn't dictate your chemistry with someone, because I feel like I've known Irene forever,
and we've only been hanging out for a year.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I know we'll get into it deeper, but I always say, you show me someone's children. Yep. And then that kind of reflects on you. I love your son. He's out. God forbid anything were to happen to you. Yeah. He's good because he's just an amazing child.
Yeah,
the way he interacts with our son, it touches my heart. So that's a reflection of you. So kudos.
So
I try.
We're gonna get to all of that identity, womanhood, motherhood in a bit. But before then, we have to talk about last week's episode. So did you listen to it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So last week's episode has been getting a lot of feedback, not so positive.
They're coming for you.
They're coming for me because I was very blunt about my dislike for the term submissive, especially when it comes to how women should behave or exist within a relationship, especially a heteronormative relationship. And I kind of wanted to touch base on that and like clarify my point. Not really defend my point or change my point, because another thing I've been dwelling with this week is like, if this podcast is going to grow, I have to be comfortable with the fact that not everyone's going to agree with me. Yeah. And I can't flip-flop who I am and the way I experience the world just because now I'm reaching more people. Yeah. So I want to clarify, but that doesn't mean I'm like, well, that's not what I meant. Because I meant what I said.
You said what you said. Period.
I said what I said.
Period.
All right. So, Travis, you have some comments that you want to share.
So we got some YouTube comments. This is from a listener, and they said, modern women always have the wrong view about being submissive. Society and past broken home experiences have distorted what that means. That simply just means to trust and respect the man's decision for their family. Like Travis said, it's to an extent, because again, past family traumas have conditioned to view authority as abusive or manipulative. Decades ago, the woman was oppressed in many ways to the point that she was invisible. That's not what modern men want. What modern men want is a partner we can communicate/consult with, regardless of her personality, and will respect our decisions for us and our families. And FYI, the same way we can't generalize women, we shouldn't do it to men. Another great episode. Keep it up.
So there's 2 points there. The first one is if the word submissive, I read the definition. I didn't make it up. It puts women in a role where they are beneath the man and that men are to make decisions without questioning them. If that's not what modern men want, why are we using that language?
So it's just semantics at the end of the day.
Then if it's semantics, that's fine. But I don't want to be called that, right? Like the same way we say, like I talk about, I don't like being called Spanish. And you could say, oh, it's just whatever. It's just calling you Spanish because you speak Spanish. No, I feel like that's aligning me with the people who colonized my ancestors. And I don't want to be called Spanish. I speak Spanish. You could say, oh, that's just semantics, but that's on you. I don't want to be identified with that, and I shouldn't have to defend that. The second part is like the ending. A lot of people came at me for that. When I said men, or I said y'all men, and then you were like, wait, hold up. I said, no, you're a part of that because you benefit from the patriarchy that exists, right? And you kind of were like, all right, I get that because you know me. First of all, we all know Travis is a better man, a good man to me, just based on the woman I've presented myself to be. Of course, I don't need to say that every single time.
It's kind of like the argument of not all cops are bad cops.
Yes. So when we are talking about defunding the police or when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, every single time I have those conversations, I don't have to say there's good cops. Yes, we know that.
Yeah.
It's not the point. It's not what I'm talking about right now. We've had cop friends, cop family members. There's people, honestly, the police force preys on men in the hood to give them benefits for their family. And you think I'm going to ever judge a guy who says, I'm having a kid, I need to join the force so I have benefits for go ahead. Yeah. I'm going to be like, be careful. You know, systemic racism. If your boss is asking you to do X, Y, Z, or look out for our brothers and sisters when they getting pulled over. But I'm not going to be like, ugh, how dare you? You know what I'm saying? But when I sit here and I talk about Black Lives Matter and I talk about defunding the police, my friends aren't in my DM saying, well, my husband's a cop, because they know me. They know my heart and like the point I'm trying to prove.
So your point is that you shouldn't have to say something that to us is just, we're aware of it.
When I say men, imagine every single time I'm like, except Travis. It's just gonna sound forced and unnatural. When we talk about white people, white privilege, I have white friends, but every single time I talk about white privilege, I'm not saying, but except you.
Yeah.
And bringing up all my white friends and like sugarcoating everything because they get it. Is that like a fair analogy?
No, I get where you're coming from.
Okay.
There was another. So we posted a clip, a kind of out of context clip about it was saying the definition of being
definition of submissive,
and I was just jokingly saying, okay, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah,
let's move on. So another listener said, the clip is fine, but the actual episode I got the vibe from, and it's not necessarily that you are incorrect, but rather I think you are missing a point. I like the back and forth that you and your husband had because it was providing a broader and more inclusive perspective. However, towards the end, it kind of felt like he just opted for agreeing with you because you said he was a man, and regardless of whether he himself caused harm or not, he was still benefiting from a patriarchal society, which is true, but a good man is still a good man. And there's a difference between saying, y'all men, which implies you're talking in general. But when you say y'all, that's including him, which isn't really fair. Anyways, I thought you could have been more mindful. And you've basically explained it.
So again, semantics.
Yeah.
Especially in that last point. I do want to mention though that before she clarified what she meant, she talked about how my perspective in that episode, she compared it to like how women would snatch a hijab off of a woman because they feel, oh, you're being oppressed, you shouldn't wear that. Which I was just appalled because I'm like, I would never in a million years ever do that. Right. I also am not naive enough to think that all women in hijabs are oppressed. Like, I know that it's a choice and religion plays a part of it. One of the fashion bloggers that I actually follow is a modest fashion blogger in a hijab, and she's fly as fuck. Like, I would never in a million years have that perspective. And again, the whole discussion about submission, I know that there's certain religions that abide by that. And I feel like it could be healthy to a certain extent. But when I look at the definition of what submissive is, that's not who I am. So
we need to throw it away.
At least the term, like, because I feel like there are a subgroup of people, men, that are going to take advantage of what that's supposed to mean and manipulate women to not have a voice.
Or groom them.
Exactly.
So it's like, that's another thing too. And like age also plays a part into that. Like if you're young and you're dating someone that's older than you by a certain amount of years, they can kind of groom you to be submissive. Whereas if you're like on the same, like you're in the same age group, it's like, you can't really groom me because I'm already old enough to know, like, you know, what being submissive is.
Exactly. So I had someone message me about how when they basically related to that quote by Carrie Hilson, and they understood it, they felt seen, they shared it. However, when I describe what submissive is and means, they're like, no, I'm not submissive. But I think what Carrie Hilson meant was this. So this is where the language thing comes into play. So when this listener explained to me why they see themselves as a submissive woman now, it's all things I agree with. Yeah. I get in terms of her relationship dynamic, but I still wouldn't call it submissive. Right. One of the points that she made was in previous relationships, she had to pay for more than her fair share. She had to take care of the things in the home way more than the other person.
Okay.
I don't think that now that you don't have to do that, that means you're submissive. It just means now you have a partner that respects you.
It's like a level playing field now.
Yeah.
Does that mean, but then that, I feel like a lot of times when women who have gone through that, meaning like been with men who take advantage of them, because at the end of the day, that's what he did to her. When we do have a partner that takes on more responsibility, we could slip into submission, because now all of a sudden we're being treated in a way that we aren't used to.
So it takes some of that off of us and onto them. And it's like, okay, we can finally just chill. Like, sit back and just.
But having that comfort to take a step back, not to have to worry about, damn, is shit gonna get paid next month? Because I don't know if this guy's gonna go drink the money.
Yeah.
I don't know if this guy's gonna gamble the money or buy a car part. Yes, that release is amazing, but I don't think that's submission.
Yeah.
I agree.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think we can get rid of the word and the definition, you know, whatever. It's here to stay, but if you feel like you fall in line with that, let's not go ahead and say I'm submissive.
I'm submissive. I have a partner who sees me as an equal. I have a partner that is responsible, so I don't have to worry about if our rent is going to get paid, if our mortgage is going to get paid. I have a partner with a strong work ethic, so I'm not stressed about our stability. I don't think that's submission.
Or just having a partner that's self-sufficient.
Yes.
Like, a lot of times people are just not self-sufficient, and you end up as a person just doing the absolute most because that person isn't willing to do certain things. So when you have someone that's self-sufficient and you're self-sufficient, you both kind of know, like, okay, this person's going to be able to do this, I won't have to do it. Or I'll be able to do this, so they won't have to do it. It's kind of like like you said, like a even level playing field. I love
that idea of self-sufficiency, because when two people are now partners, one person being self-sufficient in one area kind of takes something off your plate unofficially. Like, it just works that way. It's like a give and take.
Y'all on the same frequency.
But I don't think that means one person's submissive. You get what I'm saying? Maybe it's just me harping on the word in a way, but I feel like language is important, right? This might sound totally off, but like, for example, we're both moms, and I've been learning about ways to talk about things with my kid, right? Like, I remember I was at the doctor. I had a sonogram for my son River, and I could see his penis in the screen, but the tech was like afraid to say penis in front of him. And I'm like, it's a penis. Like, I want him to know what a penis is, because language matters. Right? Because if I give it a little play name, who's to say, like, someone in the street can't take advantage of the fact that he doesn't know the actual language of his body part. You get what I'm saying? And that sounds so like, oh, Stephanie, you're ODing, you're taking it there, like, you're taking it to abuse. But language matters.
It definitely plays a part. I personally, like, I feel like I'm kind of breaking that with Caden too, because growing up, like, you know, the proper term of like penis and vagina wasn't taught to us at a young age. And because of that, like, again, people take advantage of that. So I've like instilled that in him from early school age. From school age, like, if you're gonna be in school, you need to know what a penis is and you need to know what a vagina is, because
with Eli, like with vagina, it took longer to come up because he doesn't have one. But then when he started to realize the differences between men and women, he acts like, so what do you have? And I said, I have a vagina, you know, but
you gotta
establish it. So speaking on motherhood, the last point that this listener brought up was single moms. We tend to take on the role of a man and a woman. So she was saying, now that I'm in this healthy relationship, which she feels she's submissive in, which I just feel is a healthy relationship with boundaries and a level playing field, she gets to let go of some of the masculinity that she had to have for the sake of raising a young man as a single mom. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, on how single moms have this masculine energy, feminine energy, and how if you were in a relationship, how you feel like that dynamic might change?
I feel like like, you guys know my situation. I co-parent, right? So I'm not like a single mom. And people tend to think that I'm a single mom because I'm not with Caden's dad. But we both kind of share like the responsibility of parenting.
Yeah.
So I could like chime in from that perspective where like there's times where like, you know, Caden will be with me and I'm kind of like, there's situations that happen and I kind of have to be masculine. But then I can also just say like, I could go to his dad and say, look, this happened. You're going to have to like step in and put in your 2 cents. In terms of like her situation where she's like fully like single mom and now she's becoming like, I don't know, she's putting some of that to the side. I don't know. I feel like as a mom, you kind of still need a little bit of masculinity.
I agree.
Because sometimes when things happen, you kind of have to like, I guess, defend and protect. And you kind of have to be a little bit more aggressive than what a mom should be. I don't know.
Definitely.
If that makes sense.
But are we getting caught up in words, right? Because why can't that just be your personality or just be your strong woman or a strong person in general? Why does it have to be like, this is the more masculine side, this is the more feminine side?
I agree. And I think there's a balance, which is why my issue with the tweet was the most feminine. I have no desire to be super feminine. And look at me. I'm in full makeup and a big ass dress, earrings. I'm obviously a woman and I thrive in my womanhood. But there's parts of me that people would consider masculine that I have no problem with.
I feel like people think they associate femininity with being soft and masculinity with being hard. And I feel like...
But that's also a problem when I think about myself raising men.
Right.
Because there's things I want Eli to be able to do to be a self-sufficient person. But people see that as softness or femininity. Right. I want him to know how to cook and clean. Not because... women are supposed to do it, or what if you're single? But it's like about being self-sufficient
and being domestic.
Yeah, like,
because you always say or I think your father says it to you, like, I didn't make you for me. You have to go out into this world. You have to find your partner. So then when you finally find a partner, and I'm sure you both can speak to it, you find someone who just doesn't know how to do shit. Shit, I was guilty of it to an extent. Like there's like, like kindergarten level shit that I'm not capable of doing right now or had to learn how to do.
In relation to a home.
Yes.
Domestic stuff. Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't speak for my parents. I just think I was probably a little more spoiled, but I don't think they were viewing it as, oh, he's not going to do it because it's more feminine thing to do to clean a house or who knows?
And I don't think it's conscious.
Yeah. Those are things that I'm like kind of teaching Caden now because I personally don't want him to grow up and have to depend on anyone to do it for him. So he's starting to help me do laundry. He's starting to help me do little chores around the house because eventually when he goes off to college or he lives with his significant other, he should be able to do those things for himself and not have to feel like he can't do it or have to depend on someone else to do it.
And even if you are in a successful relationship, and those roles are split up evenly, right? Yeah. So for example, I'm more of I cook, I'm more clean. Travis definitely helps me clean, but I delegate that stuff.
Yeah.
God forbid, you never know. Anything could happen to me.
Yep.
And I want Travis and Eli to be able to eat healthy meals, to be able to maintain their home if I'm not here one day.
Yeah.
So that's self-sufficiency. Like, my stepdad, that's my dad that raised me, he never cooked, but he worked like backbreaking work, construction, plumbing, all that kind of stuff. Right. But when my mom had my little sister and was in the hospital for 3 days, he cooked. He knew how.
Because,
he had it in him.
He was prepared.
He was prepared for if he ever needed to step into that role.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. I'm not saying like in the household, it should be 50-50. Like, I cook 3 days, Travis cooks 3 days. Yeah. That's a roommate.
You should just know how to maintain yourself.
That's a roommate. I'm not saying like things have to be delegated so 50-50 for you to feel empowered. Like, no. But it's about just being able to, just in case. Like, for example, there's a lot of women who don't drive. And their husbands drive them everywhere. Travis does most of the driving. Yeah. I've had a license for going on 13 years. Yeah. I can drive. Yeah. So it's, yes, of course, I prefer him to. Yeah. But if God forbid, he prefers to drive. But if anything ever happens, I am capable.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
I feel you on that. Like when I got pregnant with Caden, I was taking driving lessons right before that. And then I got pregnant and I was like, look, I'm having a December baby in New York. There's absolutely no way I'm about to be carrying no stroller up and down, no train steps. And no offense to people that had to take public transportation.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to have to struggle carrying him on public transportation in the winter in New York.
And only because you didn't have a license.
And only because, so I got my license when I was 8 months pregnant. A big ass belly behind the wheel. And I even told his dad too, I was like, you got to get your license too. We're both going to be able to drive. So in case I can't take him to appointments, you can, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we don't have to depend on like struggling, you know, in the weather. So that was just me though. Like I don't know. I just feel like when it comes to self-sufficiency and wanting to do stuff for yourself, like you shouldn't.
It has nothing to do with masculinity.
No,
femininity.
it's just that, I just want to do that for me because I want to be able to do it and I have to depend on anyone else to do it for me.
Absolutely.
That's just my take though.
Absolutely. So to wrap this up, I don't change anything that I said. I feel like a big part of the disconnect between what I said and a lot of our listeners is the language. Yeah. Yes. I 100%. I feel like Travis and I actually had a discussion the other day about like, I like the feeling of like, you're just going to take care of it. I like the feeling, like, especially with me having to decide to leave my job. Like, if I didn't think Travis could take care of us, I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. That doesn't make me submissive. No. That means I have a partner that knows like he has to take a bigger weight, part of handling the money during this time. And I'm comfortable and I'm able to do that. Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm submissive. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that now that I'm bringing in less money, I'm going to have less of a voice in this relationship. Yeah. Yes, Travis is a good man. He's still a man in America, in this world, because I feel like patriarchy is everywhere, is universal. Yeah. And I acknowledge the fact that you are still part of that system. And I like that because then it makes you more critical to like when men are doing shit that's fucked up.
I'm very aware of my privilege. Yeah. Not just being a man. Like there's so many privileges I have. Light skin privilege. I could go on and on. Yeah. But I'm very aware of it. And I think the most important thing is to be. And it's just how you maneuver knowing that. Yeah.
And I give him his flowers in terms of like appreciating who he is. Yeah. You know, but I can have those discussions to him about how his masculinity, how his manhood is problematic in this world, even if it's something he didn't do on purpose. White people that are born white have a privilege. They were just born that way. But that doesn't mean like, I don't have white privilege. Yeah, you do. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's in that sense, which is why I said y'all men. And
words.
You know.
Yeah. We got a long way to go with gendered language.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you ready to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we have an so y'all can relate story.
Oh, okay.
So this is funny as hell.
Can't wait to hear this.
So, I'm going to call this story, Am I in the Friend Zone? Y'all ready? All right. So one of my coworkers is this sweet older guy, and one day he tells me that he wants to connect me with his son. I agree. We meet up, hang out, exchange numbers. We hang out a couple of times, and it always remains super friendly. By the third date, I'm like, okay, is this guy ever going to try to kiss me? Sure enough, he doesn't. So we keep going on a series of dates that remain friendly. However, he does go out of his way to do things for me. So I was initially like, oh, it's friend zone. But he takes her food, flowers, buys her random things like that she may need. Like she had lost the case to her earpods, and he got her a pair. So it's like he's overextending himself, but it still feels friend-zoney. Yeah. So she's confused. What would you do in this situation?
I'm very like, I'm like an urgent person. I need to know right away. So I would have asked after like month 1 or 2, like, where's this going? Because this is what I want. So if you're not about to do this, then we can end it here.
A month 1 or 2? I feel like we got to be on the same page immediately.
Yeah, it's because Travis and I were like in love in 2 weeks.
Oh.
We don't know how to take it slow.
Yeah.
I need to know that we have the same goal in mind.
Okay, so she decides, let me invite him to spend the night after a date.
Okay.
And see if things could escalate.
Right.
Put some genuine on.
Like some candles.
He agrees, but still doesn't make a move. I put my leg over his while we were on the couch.
Oh my God.
And he didn't even touch it.
Nah, I would have left. What?
Well, it's her house.
I mean,
Kicked
he
his
would
ass
have
out.
to leave. I'd be like, yo, I'm tired. I gotta go to sleep. I don't know.
We eventually cuddle, but I initiated it.
Oh God.
So we go on another date, and I think maybe some alcohol will loosen him up, right? We go back to my place, and we share a bottle of champagne. Guess what happens?
They got busy.
They did it.
He fell asleep.
Come on. You gotta be kidding me.
He falls asleep.
Nah.
Still, I don't know how this girl has all this patience, but she says, let me lay next to him and maybe he'll spoon me.
Okay.
He grabs her to spoon, but he only puts his chest on her back.
So it's like an A.
It forms like an A.
So they're like separated.
They're
And
separated.
then they're like, that is weird.
oh my God, A position.
Amy.
And the bottom half of his body is like a diagonal. Yes, he's like an A. And
Why is he being so... Okay, continue.
And he's away. So, what are your thoughts on this? Like, I agree. My initial suggestion to her was, be honest, ask him, be straightforward. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. It's been like 3 months of this.
And she's still interested in him.
She's invited him out more than once. They hang out.
No, I'm just curious if this is like something that happened.
It's
this
ongoing.
Is ongoing.
It's ongoing. So this advice could be very crucial.
Damn, I'm trying. I would.
What's your initial thought? Like,
I would think that he's not that interested
in her.
Yeah.
In her, but then you tell me about the gifts and the
gifts and stuff. So
the
it's
acts
like,
of service.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. It's like giving indecisive.
Maybe he's indecisive. Maybe he's like trying to take it slow.
But
So
or
I was thinking,
nervous.
what if he's not into her? But let me tell you, this girl's beautiful. Like,
And
I couldn't see it.
And if a man's into you, he's gonna be doing all of that regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's some interest, but like
But what
the
if he's
whole I don't know.
Sorry, what if he's not like a sexual person?
He could be. What is that? Is the
Asexual.
asexual, right?
That's something has to be discussed though, which is why I feel like if he was asexual, well, he might be, I don't know. Yeah. He should have told her.
Right.
2, if he's not, she needs to just ask him.
Yeah, like.
But this last part, the A-shaped position
Why
was
we so
weird.
far apart?
And today, Travis and I were listening to The Breakfast Club.
I know where you're going with this.
Travis and I today were listening to The Breakfast Club, and they brought up, I guess, a physical characteristic of men called, wait, I wrote it down. Is it a finger penis?
Oh my
Finger
God.
penis.
A finger penis.
What's a finger
What
penis?
finger, first of all? There's different, like. No,
So Irene gets where we're going with this. So apparently, a finger penis is a
Are you
penis.
drooling?
She's like penis. No.
It's a memory. Travis. So apparently, a finger penis is a penis that's comparable to like the size of a finger.
Ooh.
Oh,
So we look at our hands.
I got big hands.
I don't-
Travis
my
got
hands are
bigger
not that
fingers,
big.
but not big
Yeah.
enough to, be.
Damn.
Okay, so now after we saw that this morning, I said, could it be that he's maybe a little ashamed of what he got
Self-conscious.
going on down there, self-conscious of it?
Damn. I mean, I don't know. I feel like how like I'm trying to find the right way to say this. I would have sent nudes already at that point, so I would have already knew what that looked like.
You'd have been sexting.
Or
I would have been
at
like,
least felt it,
or like touched it. Yeah, like we laid in bed together. We had champagne,
your booty on it,
something. But
he did the age position, so he didn't even want her butt on his penis.
Yikes!
In his groin area.
Definitely.
And when I read this story and like was talking to her about it, I didn't even think like it could possibly be. But then the finger penis. Okay, so. Have you ever been with anyone with a finger penis?
My mom is gonna watch this. Call me like Jay.
You should have known what show you were coming.
Yeah. Not the size of a finger. Okay. I mean, I've had experiences where people were lacking in size.
Okay.
And they like overcompensated for it in other ways.
Okay.
Such as like some of the characteristics he did by being extra nice, or just like overall performance, like.
How was his head game?
I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
So he had a finger penis and he didn't eat vagina.
No, I mean, oh my God.
I'm sorry.
This is crazy. No, it's fine. It was just like other things that were done that like, I was just like, okay, like the size is all right. We could do this. But
I just thought about something. This like stereotype. Is it true that Jamaicans don't eat pussy?
That's not true.
Okay.
That is not. I mean, you're a prime example, right?
but no, Travis is like very Americanized Jamaican.
But no, it's cap.
It's cap? Yeah. Okay. All right. Another...
She is shooting at all directions right now.
All right, so another point with the finger penis is...
Wait, hold on. Have you ever had a finger penis?
I'm going to get there. So yes, I've been with someone with a finger penis.
You've been with someone else?
So in the Breakfast Club, they had someone like come on the show to talk about like men came on and said I have a finger penis and like whatever. Women came on like talking about experiences. Mm-hmm. And there was this one woman that was like that when she saw it, she basically rejected the guy, left immediately.
Damn.
Right.
That's a little mean.
I'm like, that's so fucked up.
Like imagine on the flip side if you took your clothes off in front of a... Okay.
No. Keep going.
Right.
Perfect. I'm like, imagine you take your clothes off in front of a guy and he leaves immediately. Like, I would cry.
That's fucked up.
That would hurt me.
And it's like immature.
Yeah.
And like,
it's also a double standard, right? Because if you came on here, or either one of you came on here and said, yeah, this guy was about to fuck me and he had a little small penis and I left. We'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
But if I said, oh, yeah, this girl came in and had a flat chest and I kicked out my house.
We would have been dragging you.
Hell no, call the cops.
That's so fucked up. How dare you? You probably hurt her feelings.
Right.
It is a double standard. But I personally don't think I would ever do that.
I wouldn't either.
Like I feel like I would give someone the chance, especially if we're already at the point where we're going to engage in sexual activity.
See what happens. And then afterwards, then I'll decide if I want to continue or not.
Exactly. So Travis was asking if I've been with a finger penis. Yes, I was involved with someone who had a really small penis.
Yeah.
And I liked the person and we engaged in sexual activity more than once because it was, in general, Travis is having a heart attack here. He thinks I was a virgin before that. But, it's a person overall.
Yeah, right.
But it also goes back to my point, which is probably why he hasn't tried anything. He probably wants her to love him so much before he sees the penis, before she sees his penis.
Isn't that a little manipulative?
It could be.
Because, like you said, by that point, you would have been sending pictures or anything.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a part of a relationship.
Yeah.
The sexual satisfaction, the chemistry.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to fuck on the first week,
but questions should be asked. That should come up in discussion. Like, what are things that you like? What are things that you don't like? Like, a little visual.
Normal penises.
Yeah, like, just...
What are normal penises, babe? That's toxic. Every penis is different.
I don't know. I'm above average. So.
Oh, okay.
That's another thing I was going to say, too. Like, in the since we're talking about small penises, like, sometimes there are people with large penises that do not know what they're doing. And there are people with small penises that do know. So it's kind of like, is it a quality over
quantity? So on the flip side of running away because the penis is too small, I rejected a guy because his penis was just too big.
But then we got married.
I'm crying.
I literally was afraid.
I mean,
and his demeanor, just being flirtatious and like making out, was very aggressive. So it was like he was just aggressive. He was aggressive in nature
and overpowering on top of having that.
And then I saw all this, and I was like, nah,
that's a lot.
Not doing it.
I mean, I've had those instances too, and I still like tried it. It didn't fit all the way, but
of course you tried. She said we trying.
We're gonna try and see what happens. And it was just like a one and done.
Like, I'm not a quitter.
No, but it was one and done. But okay,
that's so funny.
But I'm not here for the mean, like being mean.
Yeah, no.
Like I remember one time I slept with a girl and she was really self-conscious about taking off her top. And then when we eventually got her top off, it turned out that one side of her chest didn't form. So it's completely flat. The other side was like a normal size.
Yeah.
And she was like covering. I'm like, it's okay. I started sucking that flat little nipple.
Lick that shit.
Yeah, because like
it could. Yeah, it sounds like
if you like someone,
you're gonna overlook that.
And we yesterday at our girls' night, we were talking about how like different vaginas could be.
Yeah, we was talking about like some that are really, really flat and it's like literally a
hole and a clit.
And then you have some that are like, I think there was a girl that had on like lingerie and I looked at you and I was like, my thing could have fit in there. It would have been hanging off all over the sides.
It would like Hamburglar eating that fucking panty.
Different, sizes, all
and
of
then
that.
I was telling Travis about how one of our friends mentioned how someone asked her like, do you have to tuck in your clit?
I know who said that. And she was like, yo, I be tucking it in.
And I was like, damn.
You tuck your clit? That's crazy.
That big? And then Travis, what you told me?
I'm not going to say it verbatim, but I've seen some pretty big clits.
Wow.
Some...
He like afraid to say
I'm afraid to say it. But
were you
like a baby-sized clit?
Like a clit that looked like a finger penis.
Like half a penis. Half a finger. It was.
But yeah, and it's still pussy. Like pussies vary. So I feel like dick sizes vary. Yeah. I do feel like there's a more double standard when it comes to men and the expectations of size. But
size and look and color and texture and so many other things.
Yeah.
But we went off on a tangent. But basically, one, she needs to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, that he has a finger penis or something, or if he's asexual, you just need to have the conversation.
Yeah, have a conversation. And then, try it out.
It's been too long. You're way too beautiful.
Months,
you need to figure it out.
Try it out. See if it works.
Since they're not official, I hope she's getting some elsewhere.
He sounds like a great guy. So I mean, would you rather like a guy that takes care of you and has a little penis, or would you rather a guy with a big penis that don't do shit for you?
And there's a lot of women.
Oh, why can't you have both? Right, baby?
Yeah, you can have both.
But I've
honestly heard about women who stay for dick.
Yeah, no.
Like, fuck out of here with all the toys on the market right now. You think I'm gonna stay with some toxic person for dick? No.
Yeah, no.
No. All right. So that wraps up Also Y'all Can Relate. And now we could get into the nitty gritty, the personal, the identity.
They got me putting my business out there.
Yes. Woo. It just felt right. Like we said, we were in the same space for so long and never connected. And then when we do, we realize like, what? We had so much in common. We could have connected on so many different ways. Why? Who knows? But maybe we'll get to that as we're like having this mini therapy session.
Oh, we're gonna unpack something.
We're gonna unpack. So I'm gonna read the actual message from the listener that sparked this idea to have this conversation with you. You have covered the multiplicity of your identity in different episodes. Your identity as a mom, as a wife, as an educator, as a Black woman, as Dominican, queer. All as separate, but I would love to hear about the intersectionalities that exist between all of the different aspects of who you are, the obstacles you have faced in your family and outside of it, or even within yourself. We grew up with certain beliefs and values, and then find out as we grow older that we have the power to change so many things and so many aspects of who we are. In essence, identity is difficult to talk about for some, and many fail to realize that we have the power to define and assert who we are. So that was a message that I was like, I can't rush through this. This needs to be deep.
That was deep.
Yeah.
And Travis was like, I don't really know what to say to that.
Still like processing.
Speaks to his privilege as a man. But, you know, so this is why it was so important for us to have someone, and I'm so happy that it's you. Aww. Because I just feel like this is going to be a really good conversation.
Yeah.
So we could start with just talking about, like, what do you feel defines your identity?
A lot of things. I think there are so many internal and external factors that form my identity. Obviously, the internal one would be like culture, the type of like, you know, parents that I had, stuff like that. And then there's external stuff like where I grew up, my community, financial, and like, I don't know, like there's just so many different like layers that make my identity. I don't know. Like, I guess I identify as obviously a Black woman. I'm also a mother. I'm also a daughter. I'm also an aunt. Like, I'm so many different layers. But there's so many things. And the people around you, too, also play a part in, like, your identity. Because essentially who you have around you kind of impacts the way that you think, the choices that you make. So, I don't know. There's just so many things.
There are so many things. One thing that I definitely want to talk about with you, because I feel like it's similar between us, but also so different and perceived so differently in our culture. So you identify as a Black woman.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right.
Your family's from Jamaica, though. Right. I identify as a Black woman, but my family's Dominican. So in a Black American culture, I have gotten pushback for identifying as a Black woman because my family's Dominican.
Yeah.
Is that ever an issue since your family's Jamaican and not African American?
Yeah, like it's weird because sometimes I'll feel like when people ask me like, "Oh, what are you?" I'm just like, "I'm Black." They're like, "No, but where are you from?" Because they always think I'm like something else. So I'm like, "Well, my family's from Jamaica, but I was born here." And they're just like, "Oh, no wonder. Oh, okay." And I'm like, "No wonder what?"
No wonder what. Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? But I feel like sometimes like I have like a lot of West Indian friends. And then I also have friends that are Black American. And a lot of times like my West Indian friends think I'm too Black American. And then my Black American friends thinks I'm too Jamaican. So it's like...
Yeah, like a push and pull.
Yeah.
Like, I'm to this, or I'm not Jamaican enough.
Yeah.
Or I'm not Black enough.
Right.
And when I say Black in those quotes, I mean like African American. Because we're not African American. No. We're Black women, but
we have family ancestry from different countries. That's a little bit
different, which is very important to acknowledge. And I know that the Black American experience is very unique.
Yep.
And I don't ever want to take up space where African American women should be taking up space.
Yeah.
But when we talk about Blackness as a race and as an identity, I'm a Black woman.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
But in my experience, I've noticed that Jamaican Americans or Trinidadian Americans, they're not really, their Blackness usually isn't as questioned as like a Dominican Black person. However, I do also acknowledge that is hugely due to how anti-Black Dominican culture can be.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not blind to that. I'm not naive, and I know that, and I acknowledge that as well. So what's your experience with like Dominican Americans?
Oh, I have met Dominicans darker than me that be like, I'm not Black.
I know
like,
Black.
I have literally, literally I've met people and they're just like, oh, well, you know, I'm Dominican. And I'm just like, we the same. You're darker than me by a couple of shades. I'm just like.
In their defense.
I know the history of the DR.
And it's not only like for myself, because yes, the history is deep and it could be unpacked. That will take a whole nother episode. I'm probably not even educated enough to try to educate other people on it.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, in terms of what are you, everyone always said, I thought you were Black. And I was on the defense and I would say, I'm not Black. I'm Dominican.
Got it.
And
was it like was it almost like you're better? Do you feel like you were saying it?
Yes. And not that it's something that I used to even be embarrassed to talk about because it's like shameful. But as I've gotten older, I've given myself grace, understanding the history, understanding that when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, saying this is because I was taught that. I didn't like watch Black history documentaries or read Black history books or read about Dominican history and then decide I'm not Black. It's just the culture, the media, society, things people in my family were saying that forced me to see myself as not Black. And when I think about, I used to always blame family, right? Because I would get messages like, oh, you're going to have a baby with someone light to have lighter kids. Or, oh, she's so beautiful. And it was always directed towards light skin. Right. Or, oh, he's so handsome, directed towards light skinned men. Or, I got to cover myself in the sun because I don't want to get too dark. It was also, I would go into the bodegas. And, you know, bodegas in our community are mostly owned by Dominicans, right? And they would speak Spanish, assuming that I was an African-American girl. Yeah. And say, like, watch that Black girl, because, you know, they like to steal. But when you're 9, you're not like, I'm not going to steal. And why are you being racist? When you're 9 and hearing that, your defense is, oh, no. I'm not one of the Black girls that steal. Yeah. I'm not like them because I didn't know better. Yeah, you were a child. I was a child. So as embarrassing as it is and as much as it hurts to say it, it's something that I have to acknowledge. Right? I have to be honest about the experiences that I had that made me feel the way that I felt. So it sounds gross, but it was my reality. And it wasn't until, honestly, college.
I was going to say that. Like, it usually, I feel like, for a lot of the Dominican friends that I had that couldn't identify, it was like until they got much older that they were able to say, oh, I'm actually Black. Or like even with like social media and like having the access to information where they could like do their own research.
And when we were in high school, that didn't exist.
It didn't.
You know, like all that information didn't exist. And then I feel like in high school, I started to like love my complexion because that was something even growing up. I wished I was lighter. Yeah. I got a perm, a relaxer.
I remember you being in high school with the perm.
What?
Straight
my shit was laid,
bone, like,
bone straight all the time. And every 2 weeks I was in the salon. Once a month was just a blowout. Yeah. The second time in the month, I was retouching my roots. My roots, I felt the curl. And it was, oh, your hair. Oh, when I would go sit in the Dominican salons, it was like, oh, they were like annoyed with the thickness of my hair.
I went to Dominican salons as well because there was a time where I feel like we could both kind of relate in terms of hair and being Black. But there were times where I had perms and, you know, I have 4C hair. So when I would go into a Dominican salon, like, the facial expressions, I don't speak Spanish. I don't understand.
But you can
tell. But I was able to tell based off of
they were annoyed because they had to work.
Oh my God. Or they was doing a blowout. Like they would literally like pull. And I'm just like,
they're the reason that I got a perm every 4 weeks because it made their job easier if my roots were bone straight. Yeah. Right? I kind of got lost. But yeah, all of those things led me to kind of want to push away from my Blackness. That even, this is so cringe. Every time I think about it, like I want to cry. But I remember I was helping my mom fill out the census. I was like in middle school. And, you know, it asks about ethnicity, where your family's from, all those things that you could put, I'm Dominican, and it makes sense. But then race, you're Black or you're white. Yep. Me, Stephanie, was like, we're white. Yeah. Like, I was so brainwashed that, and this was my reasoning, me thinking I'm smart. We're Spanish. Yeah. This is why language is so important. We're Spanish, and we're Spain in Europe. So if we're European,
we're white.
We're white. Right. So this is me. If you think about how often the censuses are done, I must have been in like 6th grade or so. And for me to connect those dots because of the language that's being used, it's proving my point on how language is so important.
Do you think your skin tone might have played a part in that too? Like, do you ever look at like your Black friends and say, well, you know, I'm a little bit lighter, so
that's the thing. It's crazy because in my Dominican family, I'm Black. I'm Black as shit. Yeah. I'm Black like this. You know, I was always la negra, la morena. Everything was about how dark I was. Right. And then when I'm with Black American friends, was the first time anybody ever called me light. I was like, I'm light?
Light skin?
And obviously now I know that. And I know there's privilege in my complexion. But like it was weird. The first time someone called me light was weird to me because of in my family, I'm considered dark, you know? And I do have like some of my sisters are like slightly darker than me or like whatever. My brother's lighter than us, but we're all Black. Like all my siblings, we all are Black people. But yeah, so that is crazy. Yeah. And you said, did my skin help me? You know what I used to use to make me feel like I didn't want people to think I was Black? Speaking Spanish.
You felt like you spoke it more.
I will go in any room. If I heard people talking Spanish, I was talking Spanish.
You were interjecting in conversation.
Because I wanted them to know I was one of them.
Yeah.
In the bodegas, I would do it because I didn't want to be followed and harassed. But it was like a defense mechanism that I didn't realize was rooted in self-hate and racism and anti-blackness. But it was the reality I was navigating in, you know? And it's embarrassing and it sucks, but I'm glad that I went to college and I like learned these things and my perspective has shifted. Yeah.
I guess I could like chime in a little bit on the Jamaican side.
Okay.
You know, our motto is out of many, one people.
Yeah.
So there are Jamaicans that are all different shades. You have Chinese Jamaicans.
Say that, yeah.
You know, you have Jamaicans that are darker than me. Yeah. You have Jamaicans that are lighter than you. Like, we're all different complexions. But the Jamaican culture is so tied to Africa. Yeah. And tied to those roots. Like, there are parts of Jamaica where like you go and you'll like see them drumming and like the art, the music. Like Africa is very, very, very integrated in those things. Yeah. And like I've had friends that have gone to Ghana because a good majority of Jamaicans, the slaves came from Ghana. So I have a lot of Ghanaian friends and they say, oh, whenever I go to Ghana, I always see like, you know, the Jamaican flags or there'll be people with dreadlocks down their back going down to the floor. So like the African culture is very integrated and very rooted in Jamaican culture. And a lot of us just identify as Black. Yeah. There is no like identity crisis when it comes to that.
Yeah. I feel like with Dominicans, they share the island with Haiti. And there's this hate between the two countries. Yeah. And Haitians are more phenotypically look more still related to our African ancestors, right? So the colorism there is like a huge divide. Like when two Dominicans argue, if one's dark skin, the light skin is calling them you fucking Haitian. Like it's like a derogatory term. Right. And now I went to the Dominican Republic now as an adult. And yes, there are areas that embrace their African roots. But me growing up, the language was, if you, like my complexion, you know what people would say? Oh, India. Which they mean like native. Not because you're Black. It's because you're, you know, the Tainos that were here.
Yeah, had your complexion.
Had my complexion. Right. I did my DNA. I have like 1% native.
I never did it. I want to try it.
But a lot of dark-skinned Dominicans would use that. India, or meaning to them Indian, but it's native. So it was always removal of Blackness. And I felt like even within, this has happened to me with men in general, but even with Dominican men, my Blackness was fetishized. Like they saw me as like exotic and sexy and like would call me like the little negra, morena in like, in an endearing way. Right. But behind closed doors. Like they wouldn't take me to their mom.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
It's you know, Caden's biracial. So like my son is Black, obviously, and his dad he has Puerto Rican and Salvadorian background. But Caden does not appear as Black. He's very light, right? And so I remember when I was pregnant, his his dad's grandmother like would call me La Negra or like these little terms. And then when I finally had Caden, he came out and was like this pink baby with no melanin.
Yeah.
To the point that like the doctors in the hospital would like check our bands whenever they bought him from the nursery to make sure that he was mine. And I'm like, of course he's mine. I pushed him out. I saw him come on top of me like that's my baby. But I feel like because he is mixed, I'm trying to navigate him like understanding that he is Black and he is also Hispanic. And, you know, I do that in the house by like, you know, having him listen to certain music, reading him certain books, cooking him certain meals so he could like understand that. And his dad does the same thing at his house. But there was a point in time where Caden would use a peach crayon to color whenever he drew himself. And my sister, if you know my sister, she's like pro-Black everything. She'll be like, no, you're going to color with the brown crayon.
It's very light brown.
Yeah, you're going to color with the brown crayon. But like, you know, I think that's one thing like we kind of both have to navigate with our children is like letting them understand and know that they are Black, even if they don't appear to be Black.
Eli, you see Eli, his skin is more melanated than mine. And he knows that, and he'll question like, why is daddy more peach? And like things like that. He's very aware. Yeah. But then it's like he has this long, curly, quote unquote Spanish hair. So like there's privilege that comes with that too. And those are all things that like I'm gonna teach him and he's gonna understand and see and experience. And I'm very honest about.
So you kind of briefly spoke on it, but the colorism within the Jamaican culture. There's people who, you know, them I bleach up their skin. That's a song as old as time.
I actually have an uncle who has bleached his skin like in the past couple of years. So it's still very rampant.
So how do you think that has, you know, made you navigate your life being a Jamaican woman or Jamaican, you know, you have Jamaican roots?
Yeah. Well, I've never bleached my skin, first and foremost. I love my complexion. I do tan. I know they say Black girls don't tan, but when I go to the beach, I be laid out in the sun because I love how I look after a tan. Like I be
I bet
glowy.
You our boobs and our asses are light right now.
I be light as hell, but everything else tan. Makeup not matching, all of that. But I feel like it's not, like, bleaching is not just a Jamaican thing. It's universal, and that's just because of colonization. And the fact that whiteness was always something to be like achieved. Like even if you go to certain Asian cultures,
I was about to say the Philippines, Thailand.
Oh my God, billboards of women that are like literally like almost transparent because they bleach out there and they're lighter than us. But that's just a thing that's just taught. And I don't know. I
know that in some cultures, again, I don't 100% know, but I've heard that sometimes it's not really about Blackness in the sense of like your proximity to Africa, but more so like working class or having money, because working class people work in the fields. So they're getting a lot of sun. So then if you're darker skin, you're assumed to be poor. And like that's another thing that plays into colorism in some Asian countries.
So many layers.
It's crazy.
We could unpack all of that today, but we'll be talking forever.
Okay, so we talked about Blackness, and I knew that was going to take like a big part. Are there any areas of your identity that you feel have brought you privileges in existing in our society, in our world?
Oh, privileges. That's a good one. What type of privileges do you mean? Like,
so I'll go first.
Okay.
I experienced this directly in my home and like with family, and I still experience it, but there's privilege in me being a skinny person.
Okay. So body
images, you know, like I'm like, I know that I've had family members who have been treated a certain way that I never was treated because I was slim or in terms of beauty standards.
Got it.
That I know that if I spoke to one of my sisters or one of my cousins, that'd be a whole nother aspect of their identity that was impacted through pain and negativity that I didn't have to experience.
Got it. Okay. Well, I I'm like just thinking about the fact that I was born here, you know, being a citizen itself is a privilege because I had an advantage over my mom who basically just came here as an immigrant and had nothing.
Yeah.
So that in itself, my citizenship status was a privilege, right? Skin tone was also a privilege. I have had friends that are darker than me. And I remember this one time, me and a friend I love her complexion, very, very dark. We both applied for the same exact job because we wanted to work together. We both went in, and mind you, she had more experience in that job than I did. I had none, but I was like, I need money, so I'm apply. And they hired me. Why is that? Of course, it's because I was like a lighter shade than her. So I feel like those are some of the privileges that I've had.
Do you feel like you have any, babe?
Definitely. Shit. I mean, so, you know, I don't know if we've ever spoken about it, but, you know, my parents are from the West Indies. My mother's Jamaican. My father's Grenadian. I identify as a black man. I'm light skinned. And every time I walk into a bodega, they start speaking Spanish to me automatically. And I'm just like, no hablo español. I've even gone as far as calling Steph to translate for certain things.
Like at the barbershop and shit.
But yes, to your original question, yeah, there's definitely privilege in even my lighter skin to white people. I have no proof of this, but I also feel that a lot of the opportunities I was given, even in getting into my current position, was, you know, there's this aggression that's looked at as darker skin, like you might come across as angry or just more not aggressive. As approachable. But here's this light-skinned black man. He's more approachable. I can talk to him.
Yeah. You're digestible. Like you're black, but not too black.
Exactly. I'm not black like this. So, and I'm sure if I asked the person who put me in position, they would never admit it. But it's something that's ingrained that you would have to go to therapy to unpack.
Yeah, because it's unconscious bias. It's implicit bias. It's bias that we have that we don't realize we have them. And we have to catch ourselves. And I know that as an educator, I have to be very aware of that. How we treat boys and girls differently. How we treat black boys different than lighter skinned boys. How we treat a student who might have an IEP, which is an individualized education program, over someone else. It's a lot. We all have these little biases that I just spoke about how fucking anti-black I was, you know, growing up. It was just ingrained in me. But the reason I brought that up is like, look at us and how we could easily say like, I was privileged in this way. But there's certain people that still say there's no such thing as white privilege. No male privilege. Like what? Financial. We didn't even get into money.
Oh my God.
Like
economics.
People who grow up with money, or even if...
just the knowledge of money.
The knowledge.
Even people who be like, oh no.
Financial literacy.
I'm not privileged. My parents, blah, blah, blah. But your parents paid for your college tuition.
Your parents did that for you.
Or you had a car in college. You know, like little things that
they don't realize are privileges when they really are.
And it's nothing wrong with it. You shouldn't be ashamed of it.
But understand
that it gave you a little bit of a leg up in the world. And when we talk about work, I know that body, like weight, that holds a lot of privilege. And people are very biased about that. Yeah. Like if I go to a job interview with someone who's considered obese, that's an advantage right there. And it sucks. It's not fair. Am I going to say, oh, I don't have privilege? We did the same thing. No, it's just I'm going to acknowledge that I have this privilege. Yeah. It's just the way life is, and it sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to deny that it exists. Is there any part of your identity that you feel your family has given you pushback on?
I think, okay, so a privilege that I have is the access to therapy. Okay. A lot of people don't realize that, but even having the access to getting mental health help is a privilege within itself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people from certain cultures, they'll look at you like, oh, you in therapy? You crazy? Something wrong with you? You losing your mind? You're going mad? Or like, they'll think certain things like
still
that.
Very new.
And very, very
new to at least talk about.
Right. So there were times where I'm currently in therapy. Yes, I do talk to the lady. And
Talk to
I
the
feel
lady.
I feel like everyone needs a therapist. Like, you don't have to have something wrong with you to like go therapy. You don't have to experience a deep, intensive trauma to just want to get professional help.
It's probably even better to do preventative therapy rather than waiting for shit to hit the fan.
And then wanting to talk to somebody. Exactly. So there are times where I do like, I'll tell my mom like, you should try to get therapy, blah, 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 blah. And she's just like, no. That'll be the pushback. Like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to. I don't, nothing's wrong with me.
How long have you been doing therapy?
About 3 years. Okay. And I wish I did it sooner in life, but, better late than never. Yeah. So I started once a week and now I'm bi-weekly. Okay. But again, like the frequency changes depending on like if I'm triggered or if I'm going through something or if I just want to talk to her. Yeah. But yeah.
That's awesome.
I feel like that's another privilege.
Amazing. It's a privilege and it's also like a stigma attached to it at the same time.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Do you feel like anything part of your identity has been like pushed back by your family?
By my family, no, but I do feel by people in general, I'm not black enough. And don't get me started on our last name.
Oh yeah, I don't want to say my last name, but first of all, my first name Irene in itself is not the blackest name.
It's giving 60-year-old white woman.
It definitely is. Like you search my name, you're gonna see a bunch of obituaries come up on Google. Like it's wild. But like even like with jobs, like before like LinkedIn and before you were able to like search someone.
Yeah.
Like there were times where I would go into an interview or I would go to like a doctor's appointment for the first time, and they'll be like, Irene. Looking all over, and I'm just like, hey, and they're just like, you could tell, like they're like, oh,
so
your name's Irene.
So I mean, it's pretty public knowledge at this point, but my last name, my father's name is White Man.
Yeah,
it's spelled White Man. Over time, I feel like we've just said White Man. It's a little bit more digestible.
Yeah.
I feel like people cut your ass because of that. Did they?
Maybe on the low, I don't know. Okay. Trust me, they cut my ass just for having the last name White Man.
Yeah.
And it's just, here you are, this light-skinned black man.
And then your name is White Man.
So I was a lot of eyebrows raised. I've never felt like it was made fun of, but I never felt like I wasn't black.
Yeah.
Like I took the jokes, I took them on the chin, it's whatever. Your last name's White Man, you got a big head. Whatever, it's just another thing.
Yeah.
But the older I get, even now, it's just like, I don't hate the name. But it's like, damn, should I have changed it?
Yeah.
But it's also like, that's a name that was given to my father by his mother. And then I'm sure if we start getting into where she got it from and then where she got it from, it goes
back to like slavery.
Because, it's the name White Man.
Yeah.
It's not white.
Yeah.
It's
white. Like a white man, like the ultimate oppressor and colonizer.
Yeah. But, I embrace it. I'm not ashamed of it. But it is, I feel like sometimes it's a knock against me.
Yeah.
I'm totally open if you ever want to change it. I wear your name proudly because it's you and I know you and your heart and I love you dearly. But I do, like we talk about language and how important it is. And I do feel like the name, if it impacts you in the way you're saying, it's something you can change.
Yeah. I have definitely given it thought, and not to avoid the jokes. That's not where I'm coming at it from. I'm a joke, so I could take it, but it's more so like what it represents. And it's like, we've spoken about changing Eli's last name. We're about to have a son, River. I'm gonna give him my last name, and I'm proud of where it comes from. I'm proud that my father is my father. I'm proud that his mother's his mother, and I have an unlimited amount of love for those people. So the reason I'm hesitant to change it is because I don't want to disconnect from myself.
Yeah. Or it to seem like you have a problem with those people.
Yeah, when in reality it's the opposite. Like I have an immense amount of love for those people. So for now, I'll wear that name. Yeah. it's funny to talk about. I enjoy telling the story that when we first met, she went in on me about my last name, White Man, as a black man. And then a few months later, she's like, I can't wait to be Mrs. Whiteman.
I couldn't wait to be your wife. Yeah. But I know the reason I brought that up is because the listener was asking, like, you're Dominican and black, which is already
right.
Those two identities we already discussed how it seemed like they weren't the same. They couldn't be one.
Yeah.
Queerness and being Dominican. I feel like I was privileged in the sense that I'm a woman and I'm bisexual. So I never had to openly like come out because I never was in a serious relationship with a woman. Relationships I had were with men. And then when I did talk about my queerness, I was already grown and like,
yeah.
And luckily within my home, my mother has always been very accepting of all people of the LGBT community. She's always said, like, let people live like how they want to live. That's none of our business.
Right.
Blah, blah. My dad, too, who's even more like, as a man that's Dominican and lived longer in the DR, he's always been like, whatever, like people live how they want to live. And my younger sisters have both come out. One came out as queer. One of my little sisters is in a relationship with a girl. And that has never been anything negative in my family. Like, there's never been like, oh, like, why are you this way? Yeah. If anything, I'm like, good. My little sister can't come out pregnant no time soon.
Right.
Well, so, I mean, she spoke about her experience. We come from a Jamaican background.
Yes.
We know it's fire for that.
Right. And, it's unfortunate because most of it is shunned upon just because of like things that were done in slavery, like buck breaking, for example.
What is that?
I don't know the textbook definition, but my understanding of it is that there were tactics that were used as punishments to black men during slavery. And one of those things have to do with white men doing
sodomy,
stuff like that. And so it was always shunned upon as like, if you were like, gay or whatever, that,
Yeah. Oh, I never knew that.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've heard that term and I've heard the reasoning behind it. It's like you make someone feel as small as possible so you can control them.
And they would do it in front of others, like, other slaves to show them like, look, I'm the one in charge. So you're not gonna...
White men. I'm sorry.
But anyway, to go back to what you were saying, we do come from a Jamaican background, but I also do have family members who are bisexual. And my mom was just like, my mom, my dad, like family members would just be like, okay, like whatever.
Are they women or men?
Women.
So do you think if it's a man, it would be different?
Probably.
Yeah, because I even know, my mom is a lesbian. She's clarified. She's a lesbian. She's married to a woman. And when she came out, one of the things was, she was getting really emotional. And I don't want you telling me and my older brother, that she doesn't want us to feel like we were mistakes.
Right.
But her truth is that this is who she is. And when we were made out of love. And I respect that. But I'm also very aware that if my father came out as a gay man, it would be a whole different conversation.
Yep.
I know that I even have family members who it is more digestible for them for my lesbian family members, my mom, I have an aunt, or maybe a cousin who's bisexual. It's more digestible because they're women.
Yeah.
But let it be a story about Lil Nas and they are up in arms because
in front of their lesbian family members. They don't even realize the interconnectedness between the queer community, which is crazy. So I feel like there's privilege in my queerness as a woman in our society.
Do you think, going back to like masculinity and femininity, like earlier the show, do you think that it was more digestible because you were a woman that acted more feminine? Or do you think it was like, what if you were more of like a
tomboy, butch?
Exactly.
In my particular family, no, I don't think it would have mattered. But I do think that does play a role in certain families.
Yeah.
In my particular family, I don't think so. But I do feel I feel like if my brother was gay, they would also be accepted, but I feel like there'd be more jokes and more like poking fun of.
Yeah.
And like whatever. But I do feel like we would accept, my family would still accept it, but they would have jokes and like do those things. I have a friend who is very accepting of the LGBT community, whatever. Her parents were kind of like how my parents were. Yeah. Like, you know, let people live. Yeah. But it impacted their own family. And when her brother came out, she reacted in a way that she never thought she would have. And it was negative. But then when she unpacked it, she felt like it was related to safety. And the way gay men are treated in this country put fear in her heart. And like just wishing he didn't have to experience that, which I feel like is valid.
Understandable, yeah.
You know, like is a valid response. And I do feel like every year it gets a little easier, a little better. Like if her brother was coming out in 2021, is a little bit different than in 2008. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah. How do y'all feel? Anything about our identities, Travis, that you feel like we didn't touch upon?
Well, I did want Irene to just, you know, Irene, besides us both being Jamaican, we do have something else in common. That we're both Black people in corporate America.
Ooh.
And how we maneuver in that space is something that's very real. And when it was told to me before I got into my current position, I was just like, whatever. Yeah. It's like another job. I'm just shit is real. It's like it's almost like you're a politician, and you just have to be very careful with the things you say or don't say or do. And if you don't mind, you could maybe give us like a little background into like what line of work you're in.
Yeah, so I work at a full service global media agency. Okay. And
that sounds bougie as fuck.
It's all right. No, I love what I do. But when I started in the industry, like I didn't know a lot of people that were in corporate. And when I went to school, I studied ad PR, but it was very traditional. So coming from getting a degree in media and then not knowing anyone in corporate, when I started, nobody told me that there were certain things you were going to see, certain things you were going to hear, certain things you were going to experience being Black, and then also being a Black woman, right? So when I had started, I remember like, okay, I'm going to have to get a wig first and foremost. And this wig is going to have to be either curly or straight because our hair like was an issue.
It's giving Annalise Keating.
Listen.
Okay.
And there were some states that like you wouldn't get hired if you had dreadlocks. You would, or I should say locks, because the connotation of dreadlocks was like quick like banter, but dreadful. Like it was seemed as, oh my God, your hair is dreadful. So that's when they threw dreadlocks onto the term of like having your hair in locks.
Oh, locks, gotcha.
Right. So I'm like trying to unlearn that.
Yeah.
But it was illegal for you to get hired based off of how your hair even presented. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to have to get a wig that is almost white looking so that I could be a little bit more accepting.
The layers that we have to think about that white people don't have to think about.
So I had to get that before the interview. On top of that, like I'm from the Bronx, right? We're from New York. The way we talk is not like a corporate talking like, all of that. And I was just like, oh my God, like I'm not ready for this interview. Like, what am I going to do? I was in a digital marketing program and they kind of prep you with like, resume building skills, how to interview, some of the like hard skills like Excel and like PowerPoint and like all these other functionalities. But I was like preparing for my interview with my captains in program of like how I should talk, how I should sit, code switching, right?
Which is a valuable skill that we have to know.
Code switching is also exhausting, but I'm gonna get into that later. So I had to like prepare all of those things to get the job. And on top of that, I did an internship. I had to work 2 jobs and go to school. So I didn't even have experience. So that was another layer. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to really have to like button
we talk
up
about privilege.
Because I got to secure this bag. Yep. You know what I mean? So I went on an interview. I got the job a day later. I was like, oh my God, I did that. But then when I started, I was just like, okay, it's really white in here. Like, there's not a lot of
Imposter
melanin.
syndrome? Did you have that?
That kind of kicked in too. I was just kind of like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I could do this. But then I saw other Black people in the office and I was like, all right, this is comforting. I see other people like me.
Representation.
So we can chop it up and talk about the culture while we're at work. And then we could also talk about similar things that are happening to us. Mm-hmm. But it got crazy. Like, to the point that I remember I wasn't in the room, but like I had a Black colleague that she came out of a meeting one day and she was like, yo, like, I'm about to go home. And I was like, what happened? And she was like, yo, somebody was telling someone else the type of task we were doing. And someone said, oh, you really cracking the whip on them?
Language.
And I was like, no, they didn't. And did they say it harmfully? Maybe not.
That's kind of like say they definitely didn't say. I'm pretty sure they didn't say harmfully, but right, just also be mindful.
Hello, like read the room. Look at who's in the room before you say certain things.
Language is so important.
So that happened, and then the microaggressions and like some commentary that were being made, and then just like the type of work that I was getting. Like I saw some of my colleagues getting projects that would help excel their career, and I was getting medial tasks.
Stagnant.
Right. So my flight mode kicked in and I was just like, I gotta dip. I gotta get out of here. Like, this is not what I want to do anymore. Like, I can't endure this anymore. And like, a lot of people don't understand that the things that you go through at work can affect you physically. Like, people can get sick off of constant microaggressions, off of being micromanaged and stuff like that. So I've I had colleagues that ended up getting anxiety, ended up in the hospital, just panic attacks, throwing up at work,
how long?
Crying at work.
How long did you last there?
A year-ish, and then I bounced, and then I went to another job. Again, I had wrote people that was in the program, like, do you know anyone that works at this company? Because I want to know how they wear their hair. Because I had twists, like Senegalese twists in my head, and I paid mad money, and I was like, I don't want to take my hair out for an interview.
But so the things you have to think about.
The things I have to think about. So I had to reach out to other people, and I was like, yo, are there Black girls there? How do they wear their hair? And then I was like, all right, I don't got to take my hair out. So I went on the interview.
Think about a white person saying, are there white people there? Do you think it'll be okay for me to go there?
Wild. So I did the interview, and I remember I interviewed with two people, and the first person I interviewed with was like Filipino. I think he was Filipino, but we went in the room, and he started talking to me like somebody on my block. And I was like, oh, so we really about to talk about power? I don't got a code switch. I don't have to sound white. Okay. Like, I still was like professional, but it was good to know that like if I had got a job there, I wouldn't have to not use African American vernacular English. I could use Ebonics when it was appropriate. I could talk to other people that weren't Black and they could still understand me and vice versa. So then I started at that job, and then a couple months later, the toxic work environment started all over again. And I'm a mom, and I lived on my own. So I was just like, I got to secure another bag. I got to get another job.
Because I can't stay mentally healthy to
but I
raise
gotta
your
be
son.
mentally, I got to be good. And I couldn't work under those circumstances. I remember like going into work, I would wake up in the morning and like I would get anxiety. I would start being like, oh my God, I got to go into work. And then I would mess up on certain projects because my mind wasn't there because of what was happening to me. And like even leaving work, I would like walk like from like 12th Ave to Grand Central. And if you're from New York, you know the avenues are mad long. So I would literally just walk all of that just to blow some steam before getting on a train. Because I'm like, I still got to go home to Caden. I don't want to go home and project my work stress onto him. And then I started looking for another job. And I kind of felt like I was being gaslighted when I would get certain emails and certain messages. So I used to send screenshots to my friends like, yo, look at this. And they'll be like, yo, nah, they're wilding. Like, you got to go. You got to get another job. So applied out again, did another interview, and I got the job that I wanted. I remember I had left work one day and I was like ready to, like, I don't want to say fight, but I was like, oh, like I wanted to, like, I was so enraged. And I like one of the roles that I applied for, the recruiter called me and was just like, you got the job. And I was like, oh my God.
That's
like,
what you needed.
God, I got to get up out of here.
Yeah.
But then when she told me the salary, I was just kind of like, oh no. And that's another thing, right? Men being paid more than women. White people being paid more than Black people, like stuff like that. So I was just like, I never negotiated salary.
We're never taught that.
We're not taught
We don't even know
things.
that that's something you can do.
And so I like started asking other people that I knew in the industry, like, how do y'all negotiate your salary? What are things I should say? What are like how can I show that I'm worth a certain salary? Because I don't want to make this linear move. I have a mouth to feed. I live by myself. You know, I needed that financial security. So I negotiated my salary and they met me halfway. And I was just like, okay, this is happening.
Felt good.
It felt good. And yeah, so I put in my week's notice, bounced. I went on a solo trip by myself the same day. Like I turned in my laptop and I went straight to JFK. I was like, I'm getting out of here. And then when I came back, I started my new job and I've been there ever since.
Nice.
And the team that I work on is super diverse. Again, that helps because it's like a cushion when you have other people that look like you, the representation is there.
Yeah.
But there were still like certain things that were still happening to me. Like, for example, the first day I went in, my friend walked me around, was introducing me to everyone in the office. And there were people that did not move their heads from their monitor. Like when I tell you, they just stared, didn't even acknowledge my presence. But I was just like, whatever, like, I don't care. I got a new job, whatever. But then there were people that would ask me to do their hair. Why do you assume that I can do hair? Because my hair is always done, you know?
No,
and then
because you're Black.
that too. And then it's also like, I switch my hair up a lot. So whenever I would go into the office with a new hairstyle, I would either get the stare, like, or people would come to me like, wow, how do they put that in? Oh my God, did it grow overnight? Oh my God, how much, like all these other questions. And it's just like, damn, like, still having to navigate hair, still having to navigate like how I like all these other layers. But that's my like experience in corporate.
How is it now? Like, how do you exist as a Black woman in a company now?
Well, it's gotten much better, especially after last year.
Yeah.
I feel like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and everything that happened in the news cycle really opened a lot of eyes. And my company specifically, like all the like people in leadership are reaching out to us like, oh my God, are you okay? What can we do for you? Take time off. And I was just like, oh, this is great. Like you guys are finally listening to us. It sucks that it took this to happen. But I think a lot of people we were on lockdown in the pandemic. No one had no choice but to really be on their phones and be hyper focused on other things. And so that shook a lot of people. And so I was in an employee resource group at my company for Black people. Okay. And so when leadership kept asking us, what can we do? I put together a Google sheet and I sent it to everyone. And I was like,
this is what
drop
you could do
our
for us?
list of demands in here. And we're going to have this conversation with leadership.
Yeah. See, but the fact that they even opened the door for you to be able to do that is amazing.
It was unmatched. So we did all of that. We had all these conversations with leadership and like how we feel and things that we feel like they should do. For example, hire more Blacks and retain more Blacks, because you can invite me to the party, but if you're not talking to me, I'm not going to feel like I'm there.
Yeah.
So retention, inclusivity, all these other things. So we made something shake and it happened.
Nice.
It happened.
And it's maintained, because what I've been hearing from a lot of people is like, you know, we got a couple of emails and a couple of conversations in March of 2020.
Yeah.
But now it's like dropped.
Yeah, that's another thing I was worried about too. I was like, are y'all going to maintain the same energy or is this just performative? But as like time went by, they did hire more Black. And then out of that, like me and another group of women, I think it was Jess, Sana, Kayla, Teresa, and Jordan, we started a storytelling series. Our leadership gave us the opportunity to share our stories as to how we got into the industry. And
even the negative.
Yes.
Okay.
It was like, we said it all. We laid all of it out there. So we workshopped these stories after work, and there were a lot of tears, there were a lot of laughter, but we workshopped these stories, and then we would have a Zoom call with the entire agency and share our stories.
And that's because they could reflect on how they might have put someone in that same situation and not realize.
And also the fact that there are a lot of our counterparts that live in bubbles. They live in neighborhoods that are all white.
Do you mean Black
they
people
don't understand.
who don't
No, white people that don't understand how much harder we have to work to get these roles that we're in.
Okay.
So by us being able, like, they gave us the platform, we were able to share those stories, and other people, like, they were just like, oh my God, this is things that I didn't even have to think about. I didn't even notice that you had to go through X, Y, Z. Like, the response was so overwhelming to a lot of our storytellers that, like, we would, like, have calls afterwards, like, wow, like, that was intense. A lot of people are writing us because they didn't know.
But do you ever feel like that's hurtful in a way when people are telling you they had no idea about something that felt so obvious to you?
It was just like, how do you not know? But then I also understand that that's just like, you know, those external factors. Like if you live in a neighborhood where there are no Black people and then you come to an office where you see Black people, you're not going to be able to connect with me or understand my struggle.
That happened with me. So yes, same thing, March 2020. Everyone's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So I'm an educator. So my principal is like talking about like, we need the books for our kids. We need to diversify the library. We need to do whatever. I ended up working with a teacher who we just vibed really well.
Yeah.
We introduced social justice like curriculum into our school without consulting with anybody. We just had the opportunity because of the way the time was with COVID. Yeah. We had a slot that we could do this without taking away from ELA, math, anything. Mm-hmm. And they noticed and picked up. Administration was watching us and like, oh, this is great. Mm-hmm. So then that sparked like this equity committee. And my principal, you know, as well-intended as she is, you know, was like, oh my God, there's this podcast y'all have to listen to. It's mind-blowing. Like, oh my God, like this just like, I cannot believe this. Yeah. Like this helped me like understand, see, whatever.
Yeah. So
when we listen to it, it's all shit that like, I'm like, how could y'all not know this, right? Yeah. And feeling like, not only how could you not know this, but like, how could you not know this and then be responsible for the education of Black and brown children without this, what to me felt like a basic understanding. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you have to take a step back and not take it personal. Yeah. And just like I was able to sit here and talk about how anti-Black my mentality was growing up, they're in their 30s feeling it, but at least they're open and willing and able. And I get that. Like that, like, really? You didn't know? But then it's also like, okay, you didn't know. You're willing to know. And it's hard. It's
hard and it's exhausting having to like teach. Like, why I gotta do this on top of everything else I gotta deal with as a Black person. And a lot of the times when we do have to teach, it's not seen as work. It's not.
So we are doing more.
Yep.
And we're not being compensated for it. Which is fucking an oxymoron in itself, because when we're talking about social justice and we're talking about how Black people are underpaid or
y'all still got us doing free labor.
Y'all still got us doing free labor without even realizing it.
Yeah. And another parallel is like understanding the audience. Like you said, like your principal, like a lot of the students were Black and brown. Similar to media, they love Black culture. Black culture's in ads. Yeah. Black culture's in commercials. But y'all don't got Black people at the table contributing to these ideas. And a lot of times I do see ads and I'm like, yo, who signed off on this? Who was in the room? How did y'all approve this? Was there a Black person there? Because I know if there was a Black person sitting there, that ad would have never run.
Like in my school, there was like a unit on colonial America, right? And of course, there's some books of colonial America and it's depicting pictures of slaves. Not calling them slaves and showing them smiling and happy, like these happy slaves, without realizing that that's problematic. On top of that, because they were so into this colonial America unit, they hired this outside company to basically mimic a day for children during colonial America. No one thought all of our kids would be slaves in colonial America. And now we're asking them all to dress like it. We made aprons. We made bonnets to pretend it's colonial America. And no one thought And it was my first year, and it kills me because I should have spoken up. I used to come home and be stressed, right? I was like, I'm not wearing that. But I didn't know how to use my voice in that space yet. It was my first year as a teacher, and I would fake it to my students.
Yeah.
You know, I would say certain things, but then I remember the day of the event, they were like, Miss Wyman, you don't have one of the bonnets? I have extra. Do you want one? I was like, no. And I wore a head wrap that day. My shirt had like this African queen in the back. Like, but I couldn't say it. Now, when March 2020 happened, I was able to, they were like, oh, anything we should change? I was like, Colonial Day. And they were like, oh yeah, we dropped the ball with that one. Okay.
That's another privilege we have, though. That's another privilege that we do have. Like, I'm sure if we were in our professions 10 or 20 years ago, we couldn't do the stuff that we're doing now. Up.
Yeah. And
you could talk about that during the Black meeting, you know, the meeting after the meeting.
Yeah, right. And you're like, and it's true, because even when I started at another school that I was in, coincidentally, the way life worked out, I was working at the elementary school where I went to as a kid, and my mother worked there. So there was still older staff that's been there all that time. Yeah. And they would tell me, Stephanie, in the meetings, don't say anything. Nothing. Just everything. Don't have an opinion on anything, because that's how they had to navigate to survive.
Yeah.
And
survival mode.
Yeah, and it's hard for me because it's like I want to say things, and I'm very like open, but even me, as open as I think I am, I didn't say anything about Colonial Day. I ate it. I would come home and tell Travis and be upset, and like, but at work I would be like, okay, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna dress like a slave because that's what I would have been, but okay.
I feel like now, like, times are different, and last year again woke up a lot of people, so now people are a little bit more cognizant.
I just hope they stay woke.
Leah, stay woke, keep the same energy, maintain the same energy. Like, don't let it be like, oh, this is trending, so we're gonna jump on the bandwagon. Like, this should be it from here on out. And it should continue to get better as time goes by.
Absolutely.
Great combo.
Yeah, I liked it.
Great combo.
Yeah.
So, Irene, I end these podcasts by posing a question to my lovely wife every week.
Okay.
I'm going to pose it to you.
Okay.
Or we're both going to pose it to you.
Oh, Lord.
Irene, do you still like us?
Of course I do. I love you both.
All right. Well, Daddy.
Thank you. Yeah.
I thought you said baby.
I just said thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
This was a long conversation.
Yeah, it was, but it's great.
But necessary.
You know, we always have these conversations anyway when we hang out. So to bring it to the forefront it's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you had asked her something in the beginning, like, was I a bitch?
Oh yeah.
So when we first started hanging out again, Irene brought up the fact that this other person from high school that I was friends with was mean to her, like a bully to her. And then it was like on my heart and in my chest. And then, you know, there's certain things like that you forget out of like coping. Like you forget certain traumatic experiences or things. So I'm like, I don't remember ever being mean to Irene or being like a bully. But I'm like, did I just conveniently forget that? So I remember I like cried. I was like, Irene, I just wanted to ask you.
Oh my God, no.
Like, did I ever like bully you or anything? She was like, no, absolutely not. I was like, okay, because I honestly wasn't sure. Like, I was like, I never was a bully. I was mean if I had an issue with you. I had no filter. Like, I would cut deep if I had a problem with you, but I was never just like mean for no reason. But it was also like that moment of like, why were we never that close? Even though we had this mutual friend. And I'm like, and then I love you so much. Like, just us finally meeting and reconnecting, and our kids hanging out and their relationship. They have like the best bromance ever. I was just like, I don't want to exist in this friendship like knowing that I did hurt you in any way. So I wanted to clear that out.
If you did, I wouldn't be here.
And she told me, she was like, no.
Yeah, when you're like, if you act some type of way towards me, I'm just like, all right.
She told me, she goes, trust me, if you did.
It would have been.
Yeah, it would have been a dub.
It would have been on site.
But yeah, I was like, I knew I wanted to bring that up because sometimes we forget the shit we do to people out of like, so it doesn't traumatize us. So we, you know, or like negative experiences. Some people forget about some of the bad shit that they go through. And I know that in existing also in my Blackness, I don't ever try to forget my thoughts before, because I know that those were all privileges I had to deflect from my Blackness that other Black people didn't have the opportunity to do. They didn't speak Spanish, or they didn't have the permed long hair. So I know that those were privileges I had. So I was like, wait, was I mean?
No, you weren't. Like, and it's crazy because like I've come across some of my bullies in real life. Yeah. And I don't even know if they remember like some of the things they would say. And it was dumb shit. Like, I always had my hair done because my mom had 5 kids and she couldn't do our hair all the time. So it was just like braids. This is the quickest way. And people would be like, Irene don't got no hair because she always got braids. Or like dumb shit. And I'm just like, whatever. But like you've never like done anything mean or malicious to me or said anything. None of that shit.
It's all good.
It's all good. It's all good.
We had this conversation already, but I wanted to bring it up.
Well, but seriously, thank you. And I just wanted to go on the record how appreciative we are of just having you in our lives. Not just doing this, but just you're a part of our lives. I've friends become family, and that's definitely something I view you as. So thank you.
Sis.
Wow, I'm about to cry. Thank you guys.
Yes, no, for real. I second that.
All right, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.